Lucy had her hand inside the hole in the wall when she heard the footsteps. Her fingers brushed against something warm, skin an arm too thin, trembling, slick with cold sweat. From the other side of the brick came a gasp, not of relief but of sheer panic, as if that outstretched hand was the last thing standing between life and complete disappearance. The footsteps approached down the corridor, high heels clicking fast and determined on the marble. Lucy yanked her hand out so fast she scraped her fingers raw on the rough mortar. She shoved the heavy Baroque painting back into place, that damn weighty frame hiding the hole that hid him, and spun around just as Vivian rounded the corner. The new mistress of the Alistair mansion stopped. Her blue eyes, cold as a scalpel, raked over Lucy from head to toe. Her emerald dress shimmered under the dim light of the service hallway. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it, only the recognition of a threat. "Lucy," the voice came out sweet, but every syllable was a razor blade. "What are you doing here?" Lucy looked at her own hands. There was blood under her nails, mortar, brick dust. She clenched her fingers into fists and hid them behind her back. "Cleaning, ma'am." A champagne stain on the floor. Vivian took a step forward, then another. The distance between them closed until Lucy could smell the expensive perfume. Jasmine and something bitter underneath. Something that smelled like disguised rot. "Do you know what happens to people who don't know their place, Lucy?" Vivian tilted her head like she was asking a rhetorical question of a child. "They get lost. They just disappear." Lucy's heart hammered so hard she was sure Vivian could hear it, but she didn't look away. 20 years serving this house had taught her how to hide emotions, like tucking away tarnished silver. "I understand, ma'am." Vivian gripped Lucy's chin hard. Her fingers were cold, squeezing until it hurt. "No, darling, you don't understand, but you will." She released Lucy with a light, almost gentle push and walked away down the corridor, leaving a trail of perfume and menace. When the footsteps finally faded, Lucy allowed herself to tremble because now she knew. Julian wasn't visiting some cousin upstate. Julian was right here behind that wall and had been for 5 days. And Vivian knew that Lucy knew. 6 days earlier, Lucy was folding sheets in the laundry room when she overheard the argument. It wasn't shouting. Rich people don't scream. They modulate poison in low, civilized, deadly tones. "He won't leave, Richard," Vivian's voice came from the study. "As long as that boy is here, I'll never be more than the replacement." "Vivian, for God's sake." "He's my son." Richard Alistair's voice was tired, defeated, like a man who had lost too many battles. "And I am your wife, choose." Silence. A silence that stretched too long. Lucy dropped the sheet she was folding. Her hands had started shaking without her realizing it. She had known Richard Alistair for 20 years. She watched him build a real estate empire. She watched him love Gabrielle with that distant devotion of men who don't know how to show affection. She watched him cry at his wife's funeral. 3 controlled, almost embarrassed tears, but she had never seen him choose. "I'll figure something out," Richard finally said, and those 4 words were a condemnation. Lucy slipped out of the laundry room before she could hear more. She took the service stairs up to Julian's room on the 2nd floor. The door was ajar. The boy was sitting on the bed, clutching a worn teddy bear that had belonged to his mother. His eyes, brown like hers, not his father's, were red-rimmed. "She hates me," Julian said without looking at Lucy. "Vivian hates me." Lucy sat beside him on the bed. She didn't say that's not true because it would have been a lie. And she never lied to that boy. "I know, sweetheart." "Is Dad going to send me away?" "No." Lucy held his small hand. Never, but she had lied. Unintentionally, unknowingly. Because 3 days later, Julian vanished. Now alone in the service corridor, Lucy pressed her ear against the wall. From the other side of the brick, muffled by the heavy painting, came a quick, frightened, weak breath. "Julian," she whispered against the cold brick. The breathing stopped. Then a sound so faint it was almost non-existent, like fingernails scratching mortar. A desperate attempt to answer without a voice. Lucy felt something break inside her. It wasn't fear. It was rage. A cold, calculated rage, the kind that burns slow and never goes out. Vivian had hidden a child, locked a 9-year-old boy in a hole in the wall, treating him like a dirty secret. A problem that could be sealed up and forgotten. And Richard, the father, the man who supposedly loved his son, was just a few feet away in the main ballroom. toasting with champagne and smiling at guests who didn't know they were celebrating over a tomb. Lucy stepped away from the wall, wiping her hands on her apron. Her fingers still trembled, but her mind was strangely clear. She had two choices. She could pretend she didn't know. She could keep her head down, keep polishing floors, folding sheets, being invisible. She could survive. Or she could burn it all down. From the ballroom came the sound of applause. Richard was stepping up onto the makeshift stage to give the final toast of the evening. His voice, amplified by the microphone, echoed through the house. "My dear friends, thank you all for being here to celebrate." Lucy looked at the empty corridor, at the painting that hid the horror, at her hands stained with blood and brick dust. She had served this house for 20 years. Today she was going to burn it to the ground. Lucy had 15 minutes. 15 minutes before Richard finished his toast, the guests left, and the house returned to silence. 15 minutes before the doors closed, and Vivian had the whole night to erase evidence. 15 minutes before it was too late. She returned to the service corridor with a cleaning cart, her excuse, her shield, her camouflage. She pushed the cart slowly, pretending to organize the supplies, but her eyes were fixed on the Baroque painting, on the hole behind it, on the boy who was suffering inch by inch while his father toasted just feet away. When she was sure she was alone, Lucy dropped the mop and approached the wall. She put her ear to the cold brick right next to the gilded frame. Silence. Her stomach clenched. "Julian?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Julian, are you there?" "Nothing." "Julian, please," and a weak noise. It wasn't a sigh. It was a gasp. Like the sound of someone trying to breathe underwater. Lucy pulled the painting away with such force she nearly knocked it over. The heavy frame groaned against the nail holding it, but it yielded enough to reveal the hole. The opening was small, the size of a ventilation window, dug out of the old mortar and then sealed with loose bricks that someone had carefully fitted. Someone who knew what they were doing, someone who had planned this. The air coming out of the hole was foul, smelling of mold, urine, and something worse. The sickly, sweet odor of a body starting to fail. Lucy shoved her hand through the opening, ignoring the pain of the scratches on her skin. Her fingers touched fabric, a shirt wet with sweat, and underneath it, a body too small, too hot, trembling. "Julian." Her voice came out broken. "Nothing." She pushed her hand deeper until she touched his face. The skin was dry, burning with fever. His lips cracked, his hair matted to his skull. And then she felt a weak movement. Julian's lips moving against her palm, trying to form a word. "Water." Lucy pulled her hand back so fast she hit her elbow on the wall. Pain exploded in the bone, but she barely felt it. Her heart hammered so loudly, she was sure the sound would echo through the entire house. He was dying there in that hole, just feet from the ballroom where men in suits discussed investments and women in expensive dresses pretended to care about charity. Julian was dying of dehydration, of hunger, of abandonment. And Lucy was the only person in the world who knew. She grabbed a bottle of water from the cleaning cart and tried to fit it through the opening, but the space was too narrow. The bottle hit the brick, spilling half the contents onto the floor. Lucy swore a curse she never used, but which came out naturally now, and tried again. Tilting the bottle at an impossible angle, Julian's fingers appeared at the edge of the opening, thin, trembling, covered in dried blood, where he had scratched the wall trying to get out. Lucy held those fingers with one hand and pushed the bottle with the other. She heard the sound of Julian trying to drink, choking, coughing, trying again. It was the saddest sound she had ever heard. "Hold on, sweetheart," she whispered against the hole, as if the words could pass through the brick and embrace the boy on the other side. "I'm going to get you out, I promise." But how? If she tried to break the wall now, Vivian would appear. If she called the police, Vivian would say she was crazy, an old resentful maid trying to destroy her boss's marriage. If she confronted Richard directly, he would doubt her, because it was easier to doubt than to accept that his wife was a monster. She needed witnesses. She needed to make this public. She needed the truth to be so scandalous, so undeniable that neither money nor power could bury it. From the ballroom came the sound of applause. The toast was beginning. "And I thank all of you for celebrating this new chapter of my life with me." Richard's voice echoed through the speakers, amplified, confident, completely oblivious to the horror happening just feet away. Lucy pulled the painting back, covering the hole. Her fingers trembled so much she almost dropped the frame. She looked at the empty corridor, at the cleaning cart, at her own hands stained with blood and brick dust. 20 years serving this house, 20 years being invisible, 20 years swallowing humiliations, injustices, disrespect, 20 years learning that people like her don't have a voice, that a maid's place is in the shadows, silent, obedient. But Julian wasn't 20 years old. Julian was 9 and he was dying. Lucy straightened her apron, wiped her hands on her thighs and took a deep breath. 1, 2, 3 times until the tremor in her fingers subsided. Then she walked out of the corridor with firm steps. She wasn't going to clean this house anymore. She was going to destroy it. The kitchen was empty when Lucy entered. The waiters had gone out to serve the last drinks. The chefs were in the smoking area, enjoying the final minutes before cleanup. Lucy went straight to the supply closet. Inside, tucked away in an old cardboard box, was the backup microphone for the sound system. The same one Rodrigo, the chef, had used last Christmas to make a drunken joke about the bosses. A joke that almost cost him his job. She picked up the microphone. It weighed less than she expected. She tested the button. A red light flashed. It worked. Lucy slipped the microphone into her apron pocket. The weight of it hitting her thigh felt like a loaded weapon. Because it was. From the ballroom, Richard's voice continued. "And I toast my wife, Vivian, who has brought light back into this house." Lucy left the kitchen, crossed the corridor, and stopped at the entrance to the ballroom. Inside, beneath crystal chandeliers and among orchids imported from the Amazon, were the most powerful people in the city. Businessmen, politicians, heirs, socialites, people who never looked at her, people who saw her as part of the furniture, but today they were going to see her. Lucy walked into the ballroom. Her rubber-soled shoes squeaked on the marble. A few heads turned, looks of confusion. A maid in the middle of the party? Richard was on the makeshift stage, glass raised, smile impeccable. Vivian stood beside him, her emerald dress shimmering, blue eyes scanning the crowd until they locked onto Lucy. And in that single second of recognition, Vivian knew. Her smile froze. Her fingers gripped the glass so hard the crystal nearly cracked. Lucy reached into her pocket, gripped the microphone, and took the first step toward the stage. There was no turning back. Lucy took 3 steps before Vivian moved. It was fast, a subtle gesture to the guests, just the hostess elegantly excusing herself, leaving the stage to check on a detail. But Lucy saw the truth in her eyes. Vivian was coming for her. She was coming to block her. "Lucy." The voice was low, controlled, but with a sharp note of poorly disguised panic. "I need you in the kitchen, now." Lucy didn't stop. Her fingers tightened around the microphone inside her pocket. She could feel the metal heating against her palm, as if the thing were alive, pulsing. "I'm busy, Mom." Vivian circled around and stood directly in front of her, blocking the path. The emerald dress shimmered under the lights, but her face was tense. Small wrinkles around her eyes, a muscle in her jaw twitching. The mask was cracking. "You don't understand what you're doing," Vivian whispered, leaning forward so close Lucy could smell her breath, mint and champagne. "If you open your mouth, I guarantee you will regret it. I have friends, Lucy, people who can make you disappear without a trace." Lucy stared at her, and for the first time in 20 years of bowing her head, of swallowing humiliations, of being invisible, she didn't look away. "I already disappeared, ma'am. No one has seen me for 20 years. Vivian recoiled as if she'd been slapped, and Lucy kept walking. But before she could reach the stage, a hand grabbed her arm, strong, masculine. It was Marcus, the head of security, a broad-shouldered man who always greeted her with a polite nod, but now held her like she was a threat. "I'm sorry, Lucy, but you can't be here. Orders from Mrs. Alistair." Lucy tried to pull free, but he tightened his grip. "Marcus, please, there is a child suffering in this house." He frowned, confused, and looked at Vivian, who was now smiling back. The fake, perfect, practiced smile, as if Lucy were delusional. "She's having a nervous breakdown," Vivian said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Poor thing, she's overworked. Marcus, please escort her out. Gently, we don't want to traumatize her further." Marcus hesitated. Lucy saw the doubt in his eyes. He knew her. He knew her work, her seriousness, but he also knew who paid his salary. "Just go, Lucy," he murmured. "Don't make this harder." And it was there, in that second of imminent surrender, that Lucy felt something break inside her. It wasn't fear, it wasn't rage, it was memory. Julian was 6 years old when he learned to tie his shoes. It was a Sunday afternoon, and Lucy was in the laundry room when he appeared at the door, holding a blue sneaker. His face contorted in frustration. "I can't do it," he said, his eyes already shining with repressed tears. Lucy dropped the towel she was folding and knelt beside him. She took the sneaker, held the laces. "I'm going to teach you a secret," she said. "When something seems impossible, you don't give up. You try again, slower, calmly, until you get it." Julian wiped his nose with his sleeve. "What if I never get it?" Lucy touched his cheek tenderly. "You always get it. You know why? Because you are brave. And courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing it anyway." Julian smiled, that crooked smile that lit up his whole face. It took 15 minutes, but he learned. And when he finally tied the knot, he jumped, he shouted. He hugged Lucy so hard he almost knocked her over. "I did it. Did you see, Lucy? I did it. I always knew you would, sweetheart." The memory left as quickly as it came, but it left something behind. A certainty, a strength Lucy didn't know she still possessed. She looked at Marcus, at his hand on her arm, then looked directly into his eyes. "Do you have children, Marcus?" He blinked, surprised. "I have 2. How old?" 6 and 9. Lucy nodded slowly. "Then you know. You know what it is to love a child more than you love yourself? You know what you are capable of doing to protect them?" Marcus didn't answer, but something shifted in his face. "There is a 9-year-old boy locked in a hole behind a wall in the service corridor," Lucy said, her voice firm and clear. "He has been there for 5 days, without food, without light, without hope. And if I don't do something now, he will suffer while his father toasts with champagne." Marcus's hand loosened on her arm. "Are you serious?" "I have never lied to you, Marcus. And I won't start now." He released her. Vivian stepped forward, her face finally showing unconcealed rage. "Marcus, I gave you an order." But Marcus stepped back. Slowly, he looked at Vivian as if seeing her for the first time. Then he looked at Lucy. "Do what you have to do," he murmured, and positioned himself between Lucy and Vivian. Lucy wasted no time, advancing toward the stage, where Richard still held his glass, now realizing something was terribly wrong. His smile slowly fading. Some guests began to murmur. Others pulled out their cell phones, recording. Lucy climbed onto the stage, pulling the microphone from her pocket. The weight of it in her hand was absurd, something so small yet capable of detonating a bomb. Vivian screamed something behind her. Someone tried to pull her back, but it was too late. Lucy turned on the microphone. The sharp feedback sliced through the ballroom. All conversations ceased. All heads turned, and Lucy, the invisible maid, the woman who had served that house for 20 years, never asking for anything, never complaining, never being seen, finally spoke. "I apologize for interrupting the party." Her voice echoed through the speakers, trembling at first but gaining strength. "But I need all of you to know something. Something that is happening in this house right now." Richard looked at her, confused, all color draining from his face. "Lucy, what are you doing?" She didn't look at him. She looked at the crowd, at the shocked, curious, irritated faces, at the cell phone cameras pointed at her. "Your son," she said, and her voice finally broke. "Julian, he is not visiting a cousin. He is here and he is suffering." The silence that followed was so dense Lucy could hear her own heart beating in her eardrums. Richard stepped down from the stage, his legs shaking. The champagne flute slipped from his fingers and shattered on the marble floor, a sharp, crystalline sound that cut the air like a scream. "What? What did you just say?" His voice was hoarse, almost inaudible. Lucy held the microphone with both hands to keep them from shaking. "Julian is locked in a hole behind the service corridor wall. Your wife put him there 5 days ago." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Some guests stood up, others pulled out their phones, filming, taking pictures. Camera flashes lit the ballroom like lightning. Vivian lunged toward the center of the room, her face twisted into a perfectly rehearsed mask of outrage. "This is insane," she screamed, pointing at Lucy. "She's delusional, she's jealous of me. She always wanted what I have." "Then explain this to me." Lucy turned to her and for the first time in 20 years did not lower her eyes. Explain why my hands are bleeding from scratching the mortar. Explain why I heard a child crying inside. The wall. Explain why you threatened me 15 minutes ago when you found me in the service corridor. Vivian opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. Richard took a step toward Lucy. His face was white, his eyes red. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Lucy, his voice broke. Look at me, are you sure? Absolutely sure. Lucy held out her hands. They were trembling, but they were also covered in dried blood, brick dust, deep scratches where the rough mortar had torn her skin. Mr. Alistair, she said, and for the first time in 20 years, she called him by his first name. Richard, when was the last time you talked to your son? Truly? When was the last time you asked if he was okay? He recoiled as if he'd been punched. He was with Vivian's cousin, wasn't he? Lucy took a step forward. And do you know that? Deep down you always knew, but it was easier to believe the lie than to face the truth. Richard closed his eyes. A tear rolled down his face. A real tear. Not one of the controlled ones he cried at his first wife's funeral. When he opened his eyes again, something was different there, something broken. Where? He whispered. Where is he? Service corridor, brick wall behind the Baroque painting. Richard ran. He didn't walk, he didn't hesitate. He ran like a man possessed, knocking over tables, pushing guests, stumbling over his own feet. And behind him the entire party, 60 people in formal wear, ran too, like a crowd drawn by the scent of blood. Lucy stepped down from the stage and followed. Her legs weighed a ton. She could feel the stares, the judgments, the whispers, but she could also feel Marcus beside her, protecting her. In the service corridor, Richard was already tearing the painting from the wall with his bare hands. The heavy frame crashed to the floor with a boom. The canvas ripped, revealing the brick wall behind it. There, Lucy pointed to the exact spot. Richard jammed his fingers into the mortar and pulled. One brick came out, then another. Then another. His hands were bleeding, but he didn't stop. He felt no pain, only desperation. Julian, he screamed. Julian, are you there? Silence. A silence that stretched too long. Richard stopped pulling bricks, looked at Lucy, his eyes glazed with panic. He's not answering. He's not... Don't stop. Lucy gripped his shoulder. Don't stop now. Richard went back to pulling the bricks, and then from the hole in the wall came a faint, almost inaudible sound, like the sigh of someone who had already given up on being found, but was still there. Richard ripped out 3 more bricks at once, opening a hole large enough, and on the other side, curled up in a fetal position, covered in dirt and urine, his lips cracked and bleeding, his eyes sunken in their sockets, his hair matted to his skull, was Julian. The boy opened his eyes, those brown eyes that had once been bright, but were now dull, lifeless. He looked at his father as if he were a stranger, as if he were a dream, as if he could no longer distinguish the real from the unreal. Dad. His voice was a thread of sound. You came? Richard let out a sound that wasn't human. It was pure pain, condensed into a scream that echoed through the corridor, through the walls, through the entire house. He shoved his body through the hole, ignoring the scratches, and pulled his son out. He held that fragile body, too light, too hot, and collapsed. I'm sorry, he wept. I'm sorry, son. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Julian, too weak to hug back, just rested his head on his father's chest. His lips moved. Lucy, still standing at the corridor entrance, read the words he couldn't speak. I called for you. I screamed, but you didn't come. The crowd around them watched in absolute silence. Some were crying, others were filming. All were witnesses to what money, power, and negligence can do to an innocent child. And then a voice cut the silence. He's lying. Vivian screamed, trying to push people out of the corridor. You don't understand. He was faking it. He set this up to frame me. But no one was listening. Marcus grabbed her arm, then another security guard. Vivian tried to struggle, but they held her firmly. Let go. Let go, you don't know who I am. My father is Senator Hayes. Richard lifted his face from his son's hair and looked directly at her. And in that look there was no more love, no more doubt, only hatred. You tried to destroy my son. I didn't... Shut up! Richard roared, and the sound reverberated. You don't speak anymore. Never again. Marcus, call the police and hold this woman. If she tries to run, you have my permission to use any necessary force." Vivian looked around at the guests, at the security guards, at Lucy, and realized she was alone, completely alone. Her legs gave out. She fell to her knees, her emerald dress tearing on the dirty service corridor floor, and began to cry. But no one moved to comfort her. Richard held Julian as if the boy would disappear if he let go, and Lucy, standing beside them, finally allowed herself to breathe. She had done it. She had destroyed everything, but she had saved him. The ambulance arrived 17 minutes later. Lucy timed it, not because she wanted to, but because her brain, in a state of shock, clung to insignificant details to keep from completely collapsing. 17 minutes, 10-20 seconds. Enough time for Richard to hold his son and repeat, "I'm sorry," more times than Lucy could count. Enough time for Vivian to be handcuffed, screaming threats that no one was listening to anymore. Enough time for the guests to leave in silence, ashamed, carrying their expensive dresses and their dirty secrets. When the paramedics entered, Lucy was leaning against the service corridor wall. Her legs had given out about 5 minutes ago, but she didn't remember falling. She only remembered the cold of the brick against her back, the smell of disinfectant the paramedics brought, the sound of the gurney wheels squeaking on the marble. Julian was conscious, barely, but he was. One of the paramedics, a woman with tired eyes and firm hands, knelt beside Lucy while the other prepared the gurney. "You're the one who found him?" she asked. Lucy nodded. She didn't trust her own voice. "You saved his life." The paramedic touched Lucy's shoulder with a gentleness that nearly broke her. "A few more hours and..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Lucy closed her eyes and saw again Julian's thin fingers appearing at the edge of the hole. His gasp trying to breathe, the skin too hot, too dry, too fragile. A few more hours. She had almost waited too long. When Lucy opened her eyes, Richard was at the corridor entrance. He held Julian's hand as the paramedics placed him on the gurney. The boy was wrapped in silver thermal blankets, an oxygen mask on his face, and an IV in his arm. He looked so small, so broken. Richard looked at Lucy, and in that look there were so many things that words couldn't express. Guilt, gratitude, shame, pain. "I'm going with him," he said, his voice raw. "But I'll be back, and when I return we're going to talk, for real." Lucy nodded. The gurney passed her, and Julian, his eyes half closed, turned his head toward her. His lips moved behind the mask. Lucy couldn't hear, but she read, "Thank you," and then they were gone. The house emptied very quickly. The security guards escorted Vivian to the police car. The waiters and chefs silently collected everything, broken plates, abandoned glasses, crumpled napkins, and left through the back without looking at anyone. Marcus was the last to leave. He stopped at the kitchen door, where Lucy was sitting on a stool, looking at her hands. "You did the right thing," he said. Lucy didn't answer. "I should have believed you faster." Marcus continued, his voice heavy with regret. "You believed when it mattered." Lucy finally spoke without lifting her eyes. "That's what counts." Marcus stood there for a few more seconds, then left, closing the door slowly, and Lucy was left alone, completely alone. The house, that enormous mansion in the hills, with its crystal chandeliers, its marble floors, its expensive paintings, was in absolute silence. Not the comfortable silence of the early morning, but the dense, heavy silence of a place where something terrible had happened. A silence that suffocated. Lucy looked at her hands. They were dirty, dried blood under her nails, deep scratches on her palms. Old calluses mixed with new wounds. These were hands that had served, cleaned, cared. Today they had destroyed. She stood up slowly, every muscle in her body protesting, and walked to the service corridor. The hole in the wall was still there, open, obscene like an exposed wound. The Baroque painting lay on the floor, the gilded frame broken, the canvas ripped, showing a ship sinking. Lucy approached and looked inside the hole. It was small, smaller than she imagined. Dark, cold, smelling of mold and despair. As there in the corner were marks, small scratches made by childish fingers trying to get out. She knelt and touched the marks with her fingertips. Julian had been there for 5 days, 5 nights calling, screaming, waiting for someone to hear him, and she had almost not heard. If she had waited one more night, if she had doubted, if she had been afraid, Lucy rested her forehead against the cold wall and for the first time since everything began, allowed herself to feel. And what she felt wasn't relief, wasn't victory. It was exhaustion. An exhaustion so deep it went to her bones. 20 years she had served that house. 20 years invisible, 20 years silent. And today she had screamed, she had broken everything. The party, the marriage, the reputation, the illusion of perfection, and saved a life. But at what cost? Tomorrow she would have to come back, clean the blood, fix what could be fixed, pretend the house was still the same, but it wasn't, and neither was she. 3 hours later, Lucy's cell phone rang. It was an unknown number. She answered with trembling hands. "Hello?" "Lucy, it was Richard. Julian is stable. The doctors said he will recover physically, at least. Emotionally, it will take time, but he will live. Because of you." Lucy closed her eyes, a tear rolled down. "How is he now?" "Sleeping, sedated. But before he fell asleep, he asked for you. He said you promised you would get him out of there, and you kept your promise." Richard's voice cracked. "Lucy, I don't know how to thank you. I don't know how to apologize for not seeing, for not—" "You don't need to," Lucy interrupted, her voice firm. "Just take care of him, truly, this time stay. I will. I swear." Richard took a deep breath. "And Lucy, you don't work here anymore. Not as a maid, never again. You are family, and family doesn't serve. Family stays." Lucy hung up the phone and held it against her chest. For the first time in 20 years, someone saw her. And that, in some strange, painful way, was enough. 3 weeks later, Lucy woke up in a room that wasn't hers. Not the narrow service room in the back of the house, with the cramped bed and the window that never closed right. It was the guest room on the second floor, the one overlooking the garden, with a bed that didn't creak and curtains that blocked the morning sun. Richard had insisted. "You don't sleep in the back anymore," he said the day Julian was discharged from the hospital. "Never again." But Lucy still woke up at 5 a.m. She still put on the blue and white apron out of habit. She still made coffee before anyone else woke up. 20 years of routine don't disappear in 3 weeks. The difference was that now, when she entered the kitchen, Richard was already there, waiting. They didn't talk much, just shared the silence while the coffee brewed. But it was a different silence. Not the silence of boss and maid. It was the silence of two people who survived the same storm and were still learning to breathe again. Julian was home now, physically stronger. His face had regained its color, his body its weight, but there was something in his eyes that hadn't returned. Something Lucy recognized because she saw it in the mirror every day. It was the mark of someone who had known the darkness and survived. He didn't talk about the 5 days in the hole. The therapist said it was normal, that it would take time, that traumas of that kind didn't heal, you just learned to carry them. But he talked to Lucy, not with words, but with small gestures. He held her hand when they watched TV, sat next to her at the breakfast table, and every night before bed he knocked on her door. "Can I come in?" Aunt Lucy always said yes. She sat on the edge of his bed just as she did when he was 3 and woke up from nightmares. She held his hand until his breathing calmed, until his body relaxed, until sleep came. "Are you going to leave?" he asked one night, his voice small in the darkness. "No," Lucy answered. "Never." "Promise?" She squeezed his hand. "I promise." And for the first time in 3 weeks, Julian slept through the night. Vivian was in custody, awaiting trial. The charges were extensive: child abuse, kidnapping, unlawful confinement. Her lawyers tried to plead temporary insanity, pathological jealousy, personality disorder, but the evidence was too clear. The marks on the wall, the paramedics' testimony, the guests' footage, and most importantly, Julian's deposition. Richard never spoke her name again. It was as if Vivian had been erased from existence. The wedding photos disappeared. Her dresses were donated. The room she occupied was locked, and no one in the house complained. Lucy still cleaned the house, still folded clothes, still polished the marble. But now she did it because she wanted to, not because she was obligated. And she discovered there was a huge difference between the two things. One afternoon, while mopping the service corridor, that corridor she avoided for 2 weeks before finally being able to return, she stopped in front of the brick wall. The hole had been sealed. Richard hired masons to redo the mortar, repaint, hide it. But Lucy still saw it, still felt it, still heard the echo of that cry that almost didn't reach her. She touched the wall with her fingertips. "I heard you," she whispered. And that was what mattered now, not forgetting. Not the horror, but the courage, the choice, the moment she decided that a life mattered more than her safety, more than her job, more than her silence. Do you know the hardest part of all this? It wasn't facing Vivian. It wasn't defying the system. It wasn't even destroying the party and exposing the secret. It was realizing she always had that strength, always. And she spent 20 years convinced she didn't. Because when you spend too much time being invisible, you start to believe you don't exist. When you spend too much time serving, you forget that you also deserve to be served. When you spend too much time silent, you forget the sound of your own voice. Lucy forgot until the day a 9-year-old boy needed her. And then she remembered. That night, Lucy dreamed of Julian inside the hole. Most times, this nightmare made her wake up screaming, her body drenched in sweat, but this time was different. In the dream, she opened the hole not to a suffocating space, but to an immense garden full of light, and Julian ran free, laughing, calling her to follow him. Lucy woke up with the first light of morning filtering through the curtains. For the first time in 3 weeks, she had slept without interruption. She lay there for a moment, savoring the comfort of the mattress, the clean scent of the sheets, the peaceful silence of the house. This, too, was new. Knowing she had the right to stay in bed for 5 more minutes, that no one would bang on the door, demand her presence, or require her to start cleaning. She could stay. She could breathe. She could exist. Lucy got up, opened the curtains, and let the sun stream in. It was a perfect day, blue sky, cloudless, the kind of day that makes you forget darkness exists. But she knew now. She knew darkness existed, that it was closer than people imagined, hidden behind marble walls, perfect smiles, and seemingly untouched lives. And she also knew there would always be someone on the other side of the wall, calling out. Always someone needing to be heard. And now she knew she could listen, she could act, she could save. That was the gift Julian had given her, a voice, courage, a purpose. And as difficult as the path had been, Lucy wouldn't change a thing. She went down to the kitchen. Richard and Julian were already there, making breakfast. Pancakes by the smell of it. Julian smiled when he saw her. A smile still shy, still carrying the shadows of what he had lived through, but a genuine smile. "I made this for you," he said, pushing forward a plate with a lopsided, slightly burnt pancake, decorated with strawberries forming a clumsy heart. Lucy felt something warm expanding in her chest, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Happiness, simple as that. "It's perfect," she said, and for the first time since everything began, Lucy didn't have to fake a smile. It came naturally, like the sun streaming through the kitchen window, like Julian's laugh as he tried to flip another pancake, like Richard's hand lightly touching her shoulder as he passed to grab more coffee. Life wouldn't be easy going forward. There would be difficult days, nightmares, memories that would return without warning. There would be Vivian's trial, the reporters, the public exposure. There would be the slow process of healing, not just for Julian, but for all of them. But now they had something they didn't have before. They had the truth. And the truth, however painful, was the beginning of everything. It was the foundation upon which they would rebuild their lives. 2 months had passed since that night. Life at the estate had found a new rhythm, a fragile but real balance. The scars remained, visible to those who knew where to look, but they no longer bled with every touch. It was a Sunday morning when the doorbell rang. Lucy was helping Julian with his homework on the porch. The boy had returned to school the previous week, after much resistance and fear. The therapist said it was important to resume routine slowly, respecting his limits, but Julian only agreed when Lucy promised she would be waiting for him at the gate every single day. The sound of the doorbell made Julian flinch slightly. He still startled. He heard sudden noises. Lucy touched his hand, a calm, reassuring gesture. "It's okay. It must be the mail carrier." But it wasn't the mail carrier. It was Sarah Miller, a reporter for the Chronicle. Lucy recognized her immediately. In recent weeks, the journalist had published a series of articles about the Richard case, deep, respectful reports focused not on sensationalism but on the underlying issues: emotional neglect, family power structures, and complicit silence. Richard answered the door. From the porch, Lucy could hear low voices, then approaching footsteps. Richard appeared with Sarah beside him. His face was serious, but not hostile. "Lucy, this is Sarah Miller. She'd like to speak with you." The journalist smiled, a gentle smile that lacked the veracity Lucy expected. "Only if you want to," Sarah added, "and only what you want to share." Julian looked at the stranger with suspicious eyes. "Are you Dad's friend?" Sarah knelt to be at his level. "Not exactly. I'm a journalist. My job is to tell stories. True stories about what happened to me." The direct question caused all the adults to exchange quick, worried glances. But Sarah didn't hesitate. "Partly, but more importantly, about how brave your Lucy was and how she saved you. About how sometimes the people we see the most are the ones we notice the least." Julian considered this for a moment, then nodded seriously. "She is very brave," he confirmed, and returned to his books, as if the matter were closed. Richard led Sarah and Lucy to the study, the same study where, months ago, he had silently accepted Vivian's ultimatum. Now, the space was different. The heavy curtains had been replaced by lighter ones that let in more sun. The walls, once decorated with diplomas and certificates, now displayed Julian's drawings. In the corner, a new, brightly colored armchair broke the sobriety of the antique furniture. Richard indicated the chairs and left, closing the door. He respected Lucy's privacy enough to know that this conversation needed to happen without him. Sarah placed a small recorder on the table. "May I?" she asked. Lucy hesitated, then agreed. It was time. Time to tell, time to make real with words what was already real in nightmares. "Where should I start?" Lucy asked. "At the beginning. When did you realize something was wrong?" Lucy closed her eyes for an instant. The beginning. Not the wedding night. Not the moment she found Julian in the hole, but before, much earlier. "I realized it the day Vivian arrived at this house. A year ago," Lucy began. There was something in her eyes when she looked at Julian. It wasn't hatred, not yet. It was discomfort, as if he were an object out of place, something disrupting the perfect decor. The words began to flow, hesitant at first, then with more force. Lucy recounted the small incidents: Julian's clothes mysteriously disappearing, broken toys, meals where Vivian forgot to set a place for him at the table. She spoke of the subtle comments she made to Richard, planting seeds of doubt about his son's behavior. She was isolating him step by step, first from his father, then from his little friends, then from me. And Richard didn't see it, or didn't want to see it. Sarah listened in silence, occasionally taking notes, but mostly absorbing, allowing Lucy to find her own way through the story. "When did the situation become critical?" the journalist finally asked. Lucy took a deep breath. "A week before the wedding. Vivian started talking about sending Julian to a boarding school in Switzerland. She said it would be good for him, that he would get a better education. But it wasn't true. It was just disposal." She recounted the argument she overheard from the laundry room about the impossible choice Richard had tried to postpone. The next day, Vivian told everyone Julian had gone to visit a cousin upstate. But I knew something was wrong. He would never leave without saying goodbye to me. Never. Her voice faltered as she described the days of silent searching, unanswered questions and closed doors. And then, the wedding night. The sound. That sound that was barely a sound. More like the vibration of an insect against a window. A cry so weak it almost didn't exist. I found him because I needed to find him. Because someone needed to look. Someone needed to listen. Sarah turned off the recorder. Her eyes were moist, but her voice was firm when she spoke. "Lucy, why are you telling me this now? You refused all interviews until today." Lucy looked out the window, toward the porch where Julian was still doing his homework. His face concentrated, his tongue caught between his teeth as he solved a math problem, his small hand gripping the pencil too tightly, as if he feared someone might take it away at any moment. "Because it's not just about Julian. It's not just about this house. It's about all the people who are invisible, all the screams that aren't heard, all the walls that hide what we don't want to see." Sarah nodded slowly. "You want me to tell your story?" "No. I want you to tell the story of all the Lucys, of all the Julians. I want you to make people look into the dark corners of their perfect homes, into the spaces between polite words, into what is hidden behind the expensive paintings. The journalist put the recorder in her bag. Thoughtful. You know what impresses me, Lucy? It's not just the courage of that night. It's the courage of every day after. To stay here, to rebuild, to not run away from what happened. Lucy had never thought of it that way. For her, staying hadn't been a choice, but a necessity. How could she leave Julian after everything? How could she abandon this space that, however loaded with painful memories, was where he felt safe now? Where she could protect him. It wasn't courage, she finally said. It was love. Sarah smiled, a smile of genuine understanding. Sometimes they are the same thing. When the journalist left, Lucy returned to the porch. Julian had finished his homework and was drawing now, his head tilted over the paper, completely absorbed. Lucy sat beside him, saying nothing, just a constant, reliable presence. After a few minutes, Julian pushed the drawing toward her. It was a house, a tree, a smiling sun in the corner, and 3 figures holding hands, one large, one medium, one small. That's us, he explained. Me, you, and Dad. Lucy felt a lump in her throat. It was a normal drawing, the kind any child would make. And that, perhaps, was the miracle. That after everything, Julian could still draw welcoming houses, smiling suns, families holding hands. It's beautiful, she said. And it was true. Julian continued drawing, adding details, flowers in the garden, birds in the sky, a dog next to the house. Lucy, he said suddenly, without lifting his eyes from the paper. That place, the whole, she tensed. It was the first time Julian had directly mentioned what had happened. The therapists had warned that this moment would come, that it was important, but Lucy still wasn't prepared. Yes? She replied, trying to keep her voice calm. I knew you would come for me, he said simply. I heard you walking in the hall every day. I called out, but my voice wouldn't come out right. I was so thirsty. Lucy swallowed her tears. This wasn't the time for them. I'm so sorry I didn't hear you sooner. Julian shook his head, a curiously adult gesture. But you did hear. No one else heard. Only you. He went back to drawing as if he had said something trivial. As if he hadn't just expressed a truth so powerful, it made Lucy's heart nearly burst. That night, when Julian was asleep, Lucy found Richard in the library. He was sitting in the dim light, a glass of whiskey untouched on the table beside him, a book open on his lap that he clearly wasn't reading. He talked about the whole today, Lucy said without preamble. Richard raised his face, his tired eyes focusing on her. What did he say? That he knew I would come. That he called for me, but I didn't hear. Richard closed his eyes for a moment as if absorbing a physical blow. And me? Did he say anything about me? The question was so raw, so desperate, that Lucy almost lied. She almost said yes, that Julian trusted his father too, that he called for him too. But she couldn't, not now, when they were finally building a life based on truth. No, she answered softly. He didn't mention you. Richard nodded, accepting the hit. It will take time, Lucy continued. He's healing in his own way. And you, Lucy? Richard asked, looking directly at her for the first time that night. Are you healing? The question caught her by surprise. No one had asked that before. Everyone was so worried about Julian, about his physical and emotional well-being, that no one had stopped to think about what the experience had done to her. I am, she said after a pause. Day by day. Richard indicated the chair across from him, a silent invitation for her to sit down. Lucy hesitated, then accepted. This new balance between them was still strange. No longer boss and employee, but not exactly friends. Something between those two extremes, indefinable, born of a shared tragedy. I gave an interview today, she said, but it to Sarah Miller. Richard nodded. He didn't seem surprised. I know. She approached me first. So I said I would talk, but only after you did, if you wanted to. Why? Because it's your story to tell, Lucy. You're the hero, not me. Lucy looked at Richard, surprised by his words. Hero? She had never seen herself that way. She had only done what was necessary, What anyone with an ounce of humanity would do. "I'm not a hero," she finally said. "I just did what I had to do." Richard shook his head. "That's exactly what makes you a hero. Lucy, you did what was right when all of us failed." He rotated the glass of whiskey between his hands, watching the amber liquid in the library's dim light. "Do you know what haunts me the most?" he continued, his voice low, almost a whisper. "It's not just that I didn't see what Vivian was doing. It's that on some level maybe I knew, and I chose not to see." It was a painful confession, the kind only made in the shadows, protected by partial darkness. "Why would you do that?" Lucy asked, without judgment, just genuine curiosity. Richard took a deep breath, his shoulders slumping under the weight of guilt. "Because it was easier. Because after Gabriella left, I was so empty, and Vivian filled that void. She was beautiful, smart, she seemed perfect. I wanted to believe in that perfection, even when the evidence showed otherwise." He took a sip of whiskey, the first of the night. "You know what's most ironic? I thought I was protecting Julian by keeping Vivian around. I thought he needed a mother figure, a complete family, and I almost lost him because of it." Lucy thought of all the times she saw Richard ignore the signs, the times Julian tried to talk to him about how he felt, and Richard had responded with empty advice. "Give her time. You'll get used to each other. She's just nervous about the wedding." "Did you love her?" Lucy asked, surprising herself with the boldness of the question. Richard considered it for a long moment. "No," he finally replied. "Not like I loved Gabriella. I loved the idea of her, the promise of a new life, of leaving the grief behind, of having someone by my side again." He placed the glass on the table, unfinished. "And you, Lucy? Did you love Julian from the start?" It was her turn to be surprised. It was a question no one had ever asked. "Yes," she answered without hesitation. "From the moment I held him in my arms, newborn. He wasn't my son, but somehow he was mine. To care for, to protect," Richard nodded, understanding. For a long moment they were silent, each lost in their own thoughts. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence, but a contemplative one. The silence of two people who could finally speak honestly, but who sometimes preferred not to speak. "Vivian's trial starts next week." Richard finally said, "Will you testify?" "Toss him, if necessary. For Julian. Her lawyers will try to discredit you. They'll say you invented everything, that you were jealous, that you wanted to separate me from Vivian." Lucy shrugged. "Let them say it. The truth is in the walls of this house, in Julian's hands, in the videos the guests recorded. No one can erase that." Richard watched her with something like admiration. "Where does that strength come from, Lucy?" She thought about the question. It wasn't strength, not really. It was resignation. No, it was more than that. It was the acceptance that some battles must be fought, no matter the cost. "From necessity," she answered simply. "When you don't have a choice, you find a way." Richard nodded again, then stood up. "It's late. You should rest." Lucy also stood, but before she could leave, Richard lightly touched her arm. "Thank you," he said. "Not just for Julian, for showing me that I can still be a better man, a better father." She smiled, a small but sincere smile. "Good night, Richard." "Good night, Lucy." She went up to her room, the one that still didn't feel entirely hers despite the 2 months. On the way, she stopped at Julian's room. The door was ajar, as it always was now. The boy needed to know he could leave, that he wasn't trapped. He needed to see the hallway light, hear the sounds of the house. Lucy peeked inside. Julian was sleeping peacefully, his mother's teddy bear clutched against his chest. His face was relaxed, without the tension he carried during the day. In sleep, he was still just a 9-year-old boy, without trauma, without fear, just a boy dreaming. She closed the door carefully, leaving a crack for the light to enter, and continued to her room. She sat on the bed and picked up her phone. There was a message from Sarah. "Thanks for the interview. I will honor your story. The article comes out Sunday." Lucy put the phone on the nightstand and lay down. Sunday. 3 more days and her voice would be in every newsstand, on every news site. Her story, no. Their story would be public in a way that couldn't be ignored. wasn't afraid of the exposure. She only feared that the words wouldn't be enough to capture the reality of what they had lived through. How to explain the sound of a muffled cry behind bricks. How to describe the texture of Julian's skin, too hot, too dry. How to convey the absolute terror of holding the hand of a dying child, separated by a wall that shouldn't exist. Words were too fragile to carry such weight, but maybe, she thought, closing her eyes, maybe they didn't need to carry everything. Maybe it was enough to carry enough to make other people look, pay attention, listen, to make other Lucys realize they had a voice, and other Richards open their eyes to what was right in front of them. The next morning, Lucy woke up with a plan formed. She called Richard and Julian to the breakfast table. "We need to talk about the trial," she said bluntly, "and about what happens after." Julian stared at his cereal, avoiding looking at the adults. Richard put down his coffee cup. "What do you have in mind?" he asked. "I want to start a foundation," Lucy said, the words coming out more easily than she expected. "A place where children like Julian can feel safe, where they can speak, where someone will listen to them." Richard looked at her, surprised, but didn't reject the idea. "You mean an institution to support child abuse victims?" "There's something more than that. I want to create a space where silenced voices are heard. Not just children, but housekeepers, caregivers, anyone who sees what others don't want to see. A place where they can report without fear, where they are taken seriously." Julian finally lifted his eyes from his cereal. "Like you did for me?" he asked, his voice small but clear. "Yes, sweetheart. Exactly like I did for you." Richard tapped his fingers on the table, thoughtful. "It will need money, structure, legal support." "I know," Lucy agreed. "That's why I'm talking to you. You have all of that." Richard stared at her for a long moment, then smiled. A genuine smile, the kind she rarely saw. "Yes, I do. And now you do too." Julian looked from one to the other, confused. "Does this mean we're going to help other kids? Kids like me?" Lucy reached out and touched his cheek. "Yes, and it means that what happened to you wasn't in vain. That something good can be born even from the worst experiences." The boy considered this, that expression too serious for his young face. Then he nodded, as if he had made an important decision. "I want to help," he declared. "I can draw things for the foundation, make posters, talk to other kids." Richard and Lucy exchanged glances. It was the first time Julian had offered to do something like this, to use his experience to help others. It was a huge step. "Of course you can," Richard said, his voice thick with emotion. "That would be perfect." After breakfast, while Julian finished getting ready for his therapy session, Richard and Lucy remained at the table. "You are serious about the foundation?" he asked, completely. I think I need to do this, to give meaning to everything." Richard nodded. "I'll call my lawyer today. We can start the legal proceedings, set up an NGO, register the paperwork. Do you have a name in mind?" Lucy didn't have to think long. The Walls That Speak Project. He raised his eyebrows, intrigued. "Why?" "Because walls hide things, but they can also reveal them." "Because we need to listen to what's behind them." Richard studied her for a moment, then picked up his phone. "It's perfect. I'll make the call now." When he left the kitchen, Lucy allowed herself a moment of quiet. 2 months ago, she was a housekeeper who had never dreamed beyond the walls of that house. Now, she was planning a foundation, giving interviews, testifying in court. It was scary, yes, but also liberating. Julian appeared in the kitchen doorway, backpack on his back, ready to leave. "Lucy?" "Yes, sweetheart?" "Will you be here when I get back from therapy?" It was a question he asked every day before leaving, a confirmation that the world would still be in place when he returned. "Always," she replied, as she always did. But this time, Julian added something new. "And afterward, can we start planning the foundation? I have an idea for the logo." Lucy felt her heart expand in her chest, a warm, bright feeling like sunshine after rain. "Of course we can. I can't wait to see it." Julian smiled, a smile that lit up his eyes, and Lucy thought that maybe, just maybe, the scars could one day become marks of strength, not just pain. The road would be long, she knew. There would be the trial, with its circus of lawyers, reporters, and onlookers. There would be difficult days for Julian, relapses, nightmares. There would be moments when Richard would doubt himself again as a father, as a man. But now they had a purpose, something greater than their own pain. They had a mission. And in that, Lucy found a peace she hadn't expected. A certainty that even in the darkest places, there is always a light that can be lit. Even in the thickest walls, there is always a voice that can be heard. All it took was someone willing to listen. The courtroom was packed when Lucy entered. Rows of unfamiliar faces turned to look at her, some with curiosity, others with compassion. Camera flashes popped like lightning, despite the judge's warnings against photography. This was, after all, the story that had captured the attention of the entire country. Lucy's interview with Sarah Miller had been published 3 weeks ago, taking up 8 full pages of the main section of the Chronicle. The article, titled "The Walls That Speak: The Richard Case," had generated a wave of national outrage. Other newspapers reproduced the story, television programs debated the case, and experts in child psychology and human rights were consulted. But none of this had prepared Lucy for this moment, facing Vivian, personally for the first time since that night. She was sitting in the front row, next to Richard. Julian was not present. The therapists had been adamant about that. He didn't need to relive the trauma in the cold, formal environment of a courtroom. But his presence was felt in every word, in every glance exchanged between Lucy and Richard. The side door opened, and Vivian entered, escorted by 2 officers. She was almost unrecognizable. Her hair, once perfectly dyed and styled, now showed dark roots. Her face, without makeup, looked older, harder. The designer clothes had been replaced by a simple navy blue suit, chosen by the lawyers to make her appear sober and remorseful. But her eyes were still the same, cold, calculating, unable to completely hide the disdain as she scanned the room. When her gaze met Lucy's, something flashed in them. It wasn't fear or remorse. It was rage, the same cold anger from that night in the service corridor. "Are you okay?" Richard whispered, squeezing Lucy's hand under the table. "I am," she replied, surprised by her own calm. "I am exactly where I need to be." The judge entered, everyone stood, and the trial began. The initial proceedings were a fog of legal terms and formalities. Lucy watched them as if she were watching a play in a foreign language, understanding the energy of the room more than the specific words. Then, her name was called. "The state calls Lucy Santos to the stand." Lucy stood up, feeling the weight of all eyes. She walked to the witness stand, took the oath to tell the truth. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady. The prosecutor, Dr. Clarice Mendes, approached. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes that contrasted with her reputation for being ruthless in court. "Ms. Santos, please tell the court in your own words what happened on the night of March 15th. Lucy took a deep breath and began. She told about the footsteps in the hallway, her hand in the hole in the wall, the touch on Julian's feverish fingers. She described the confrontation with Vivian, the decision to grab the microphone, the ascent to the stage. She spoke about the rescue, about the state Julian was found in, about the claw marks on the wall where he had tried to escape. Her voice did not fail, did not hesitate. It was as if she were telling someone else's story, from another life. When she finished, the room was in absolute silence. Lucy could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights, the distant sound of traffic outside. Dr. Mendes watched her for a long moment before continuing. "Miss Santos, why did you wait until that night to act? If you suspected something was wrong with Julian, why didn't you alert the authorities sooner?" The question was fair. It was the same one Lucy had asked herself countless times during the sleepless nights since the rescue. "I didn't know where he was," she answered honestly. "I believed, at first, that he really might be with relatives. As Vivian claimed, I started to suspect, but I had no proof. And who would believe me? A housekeeper against the wife of one of the wealthiest men in the city." She looked directly at the judge. "Only when I heard him, when I touched him through that wall, was I absolutely sure. And then I acted immediately." The prosecutor nodded. "Satisfied? Thank you, Ms. Santos. No further questions. Your Honor." Now it was the defense's turn. Vivian's lawyer, Dr. Augustus Barnes, was known for his aggressive style. He stood up slowly, adjusted his tie, and walked toward Lucy like a predator approaching prey. "Mrs. Santos," he began, his voice smooth. "How long exactly did you work for the Richard family?" 20 years. 20 years, he repeated, as if the number was significant. "And during those 20 years you developed a special relationship with your employer's son, didn't you?" Lucy felt Richard shift uncomfortably in his chair. She knew where the lawyer was going. "If by special you mean that I loved him as if he were my own son, yes." Dr. Barnes smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And when Mr. Richard decided to marry again, after years of being a widower, how did you feel?" "I was happy for him," Lucy replied simply. "Happy?" The lawyer raised his eyebrows, feigning surprise. "Weren't you worried about losing your privileged position in the family?" "Objection, Your Honor." The prosecutor stood up. "Speculative and irrelevant." "I'll rephrase," Dr. Barnes said before the judge could rule. "Mrs. Santos, isn't it true that you harbored romantic feelings for your employer?" A murmur ran through the room. Lucy felt her face heat up, not from shame, but from indignation. "No," she replied firmly, "never." "And isn't it true that you saw Mrs. Vivian as a rival, a threat to your position in the house?" "No." "And isn't it true," the lawyer continued, raising his voice, "that you invented this entire kidnapping story to separate Mr. Richard from his wife?" "Objection." The prosecutor was on her feet again. "Counsel is accusing the witness of perjury without any basis." "Your Honor," Dr. Barnes countered, "I am merely suggesting an alternative motive for the witness's actions." The judge considered for a moment. "I will allow it, but tread carefully." "Dr. Barnes, the witness may answer." Lucy looked directly into the lawyer's eyes. "No, it is not true. And if I wanted to invent a story, I wouldn't have chosen one so horrific. I wouldn't have put Julian at risk. I wouldn't have waited until he was on the verge of dehydration. And certainly," she added, her voice gaining strength, "I wouldn't have chosen to tell that story in front of 60 witnesses, all with cell phones recording." The room erupted in whispers. Dr. Barnes backed away slightly, realizing his strategy had failed. "No further questions," he said abruptly. Lucy was dismissed and returned to her seat beside Richard. He took her hand again, squeezing it in silent solidarity. The next to testify was Marcelo, the head of security. Then came the paramedics, the hospital doctors, the forensic experts who analyzed the hole in the wall. Every testimony reinforced Lucy's story. Every piece of evidence made Vivian's guilt clearer. Throughout it all, Vivian remained impassive, occasionally whispering something to her lawyer. Only once did her control waver, when the photographs of the hole in the wall were shown, with Julian's claw marks clearly visible. For a brief moment, her face contorted into something that might have been remorse, or perhaps it was just anger at being caught. At the end of the day, the judge adjourned the session until the following day. Lucy and Richard left together, once again facing the sea of reporters and photographers. "How do you feel after the first day of the trial?" shouted one reporter. "Do you believe justice will be served?" asked another. Richard raised his hand, asking for silence. "We are confident in the justice system," he said, his voice calm but firm, "and we only want our son to be able to continue his life in peace. Please respect our privacy." They managed to get into the car, leaving the commotion behind. In the silence of the back seat, Lucy finally allowed the tears to come. They weren't tears of sadness or fear, but of relief. She had faced Vivian. She had looked into the monster's eyes and hadn't backed down. "You were incredible in there," Richard said, putting an arm around her shoulders. "I just told the truth. Sometimes, that's the hardest thing to do." When they arrived home, Julian was waiting on the porch, anxious for news. Seeing the car, he ran to the gate. His face was tense, worried. "Much older than his 9 years. How did it go?" he asked as soon as they got out of the car. Lucy knelt to be at his level. It was hard, she admitted, because they had promised never to lie to Julian again, not even to protect him. "But we did what needed to be done. We told the truth." Julian nodded gravely. "Is she going to jail?" "The trial isn't over yet," Richard explained, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "But yes, I believe she will be convicted." Julian looked at the ground, processing the information. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. While you were out, I finished the drawing for the foundation, he announced, abruptly changing the subject as only a child can do. Want to see it, Lucy? Of course I do, she replied, grateful for the shift in focus. Julian took her hand and pulled her inside, to the kitchen table where a large piece of paper was spread out. In the drawing, there was a house with large windows full of light. Around the house, children were playing, and on the walls of the house, small doors were drawn. Not normal doors, but small window-sized doors like the opening through which Julian had been rescued. It's so the kids can get out when they need to, he explained, so they never get trapped. Lucy felt her heart expand in her chest. Even after everything he had been through, Julian could still transform his trauma into something beautiful, something that could help others. It's perfect, she said, hugging him tightly. That night, Lucy slept without nightmares for the first time in weeks. Tomorrow would be another day of trial, another day of facing the past. But now she knew she could do it, not just for Julian, not just for justice, but for all the children who might one day need doors in their walls. A year had passed since Vivian's trial. The sentence was 12 years, without the possibility of parole for the first 8. A victory, the lawyers said. Justice, the newspapers said, but for Lucy, for Julian, for Richard, there was no real victory in this story. Only the slow reconstruction of lives that had been shattered and that, like kintsugi vessels, now displayed their fractures filled with gold, stronger, more beautiful, but forever marked. The Walls That Speak Foundation had officially opened 6 months ago. It occupied a restored downtown townhouse, an old building with large, airy windows, the perfect antithesis to the dark hole that had inspired its creation. The logo, based on Julian's drawing, adorned the facade, a house with small doors in the walls, through which children could enter and exit freely. That Saturday morning, the foundation was especially busy. It was Support Group Day, a space where children who had suffered similar traumas could share their stories, their fears, their progress. Julian rarely missed a meeting. To the surprise of the therapists, he had become a kind of natural leader among the younger children. His experience, instead of making him bitter, had awakened a deep empathy, a wisdom beyond his years. Lucy watched from the doorway of the activity room as Julian helped a 7-year-old girl with her drawing. Little Annie had arrived at the foundation 3 months ago, a victim of severe neglect. She still barely spoke, but her eyes followed Julian with a mixture of admiration and hope, as if she thought, if he survived, maybe I can too. He has a natural gift, doesn't he? Sarah Miller's voice startled Lucy. The journalist, who had become a close friend over the past year, smiled as she watched the scene. He does, Lucy agreed. Sometimes I wonder if all children who go through what he went through develop this sensitivity, this ability to see the pain of others. Sarah considered the question. Maybe, or maybe it's just Julian. Maybe it's the love he received afterward, from you, from Richard. Love heals in ways we don't fully understand. Lucy nodded. Thoughtful. Love heals. She had seen this truth manifest daily. In Julian's slow rebirth, in the strengthening of the bond between father and son, in her own awakening to a life she had never imagined for herself. In the last year, her life had changed in ways that still surprised her. She was now the foundation's executive director, a title that still sounded strange for someone who had spent 2 decades being called the housekeeper. She had gone back to school, finished high school, and started a technical course in social work. She was learning, growing, and transforming her experience into a tool to help others. Your podcast interview drops tomorrow, Hannah commented, changing the subject. Do you think you're ready for the reaction? Lucy shrugged. After everything we went through, a podcast is child's play. Hannah laughed, but her gaze remained serious. Don't underestimate the impact of your story. Lucy, you have no idea how many people were touched by what happened. How many started paying closer attention to the signs? How many gathered the courage to report abuse they were witnessing? I didn't do anything special, Lucy insisted, as she always did when someone tried to put her on a pedestal. Just what anyone with a shred of humanity would do. That's exactly the point, Hannah replied, lightly touching Lucy's arm. You showed all of us that we don't have to be special to make a difference. We just have to be human, And that might be the most important lesson of all. Before Lucy could answer, her phone rang. It was Richard. "I'm almost there," he said. "Traffic is brutal on the I-95. Am I late to pick up Ethan?" "No, you still have half an hour. They're in the middle of an activity." "Great, I have a surprise for him." Lucy smiled. Richard's surprises had become frequent over the last year. Tickets to baseball games, trips to the Natural History Museum, weekends down the coast. Small gestures that were slowly rebuilding the trust Ethan had lost in his father. A fatherhood that had awakened late, but was now flourishing with doubled intensity. When she hung up, she saw Hannah watching her with an enigmatic smile. "What is it?" Lucy asked, intrigued. "Nothing. I was just thinking I've never seen you look so alive." It was true, Lucy realized. Something had awakened inside her that fateful night. Not just courage, but a deeper awareness of herself, her capabilities, her worth. "I guess we almost have to lose something precious to find out who we really are," she replied. "It's a lesson that costs too much, and I wish I hadn't learned it this way. But it's true." The support group was wrapping up. The children were putting their drawings into colorful folders, talking in small groups, some laughing, a sound that always made Lucy's heart swell. Laughter from children who had known the worst of humanity, yet could still find joy. There was no greater miracle than that. Ethan came up to her, holding Annie's hand. "Lucy, Annie made a drawing for you." The girl held out a paper where she had drawn 3 figures, one large, one medium, and one small, all holding hands. Above them, a smiling sun. Lucy immediately recognized the echo of the drawing Ethan had made a year ago. "It's beautiful, Annie, thank you." The girl smiled shyly and ran back to the activity room. Ethan stayed, watching Lucy with that overly serious expression that sometimes still took over his face. "She's going to be okay, right?" he asked. "Like I am." Lucy knelt down to be at his level, as she always did when the conversation was important. "She will, sweetheart. It will take time, just like it took time for you. But she will be okay." Ethan nodded, satisfied, because she has people who listen to her now. "Like I had you." Lucy felt a lump in her throat. The simplicity with which Ethan expressed such profound truths always moved her. "Exactly," she managed to say. Ethan hugged her, a strong, secure embrace, so different from the tense, frightened hugs of the first few months after the rescue. "I love you, Lucy." "I love you too, my little hero." Richard arrived shortly after, carrying a mysterious box. Ethan ran up to him, curious. "What is it, Dad?" Richard smiled. That smile that had become more frequent, more natural over the last year. "Something you've wanted for a long time. But first we need to talk, all 3 of us." They sat in the small garden of the foundation. It was a peaceful space, with an old oak tree providing pleasant shade. Richard placed the box on the ground beside him and looked at Ethan and Lucy. "I've been thinking," he began, "about family, about what it really means. And I realize that family isn't just who shares our blood, but who shares our life. Who is there in the good times and especially in the bad times." Ethan listened intently, his eyes going from Richard to Lucy and back to his father. "And I realized that the 3 of us, well, we are a family, a strange, imperfect family built on scars, but still a family." Lucy felt her heart race. She didn't know where Richard was going with this, but something in the intensity of his gaze made her nervous. "And so," he continued, "I thought maybe it was time to make it official. In some way." He opened the box. Inside were papers, many official papers. On top, a document with the state seal. "It's an adoption petition," he explained, looking at Lucy, "for you to legally become Ethan's mother alongside me." The world seemed to stop for an instant. Lucy stared at the papers, then Richard, then Ethan. The boy was smiling openly now, clearly already knowing the surprise. "Adoption?" she repeated, the word strange in her mouth. "Yes, Ethan already considers you his mother. In every way that matters, you are. This just makes what is already real legal." Lucy looked at Ethan. "What do you think about this, sweetheart?" He rolled his eyes as if the question were absurd. "It was my idea, Lucy. I asked Dad." "You asked?" "Of course. You promised you'd never leave me. And I want to make sure. I want it to be official." The tears Lucy had been holding back finally spilled over. They weren't tears of sadness or fear. They were tears of recognition. Of finally being seen not as a servant, not as a hero, but simply as who she was. A woman who loved that boy more than anything in the world. "So, what do you say?" Richard asked, his voice tight with expectation. "Do you want to officially be part of this crazy family?" Lucy couldn't answer with words. She just nodded, an almost imperceptible movement, but enough. Ethan shouted with joy and jumped into her arms. Richard joined the embrace, and for a moment, there in the foundation garden under the shade of the old oak, they were just that, a family. Imperfect, broken, rebuilt, but real. Later, when Ethan had run off to tell his friends at the foundation the news, Lucy and Richard remained alone in the garden. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "That this is what you really want?" Richard looked at her for a long moment. "I am. And not just for Ethan, although he is the main reason. It's for me too. Because you taught me something I needed to learn, Lucy. You taught me how to truly see, how to truly listen. Not just to Ethan, but to everyone around me." Lucy smiled. "I think we learned together." He held out his hand, a simple gesture yet loaded with meaning. Lucy accepted it. It wasn't a romantic gesture. That wasn't the kind of relationship they had or were seeking. It was something different, perhaps deeper. A partnership born of fire, tempered by pain, solidified by shared purpose. At the end of the day, when the foundation was empty and the sun began to set, Lucy returned to the hallway where everything had begun. Not the actual hallway in the Miller mansion, which they had sold 6 months ago. Neither of them could live there anymore, but a symbolic hallway they had recreated at the foundation. It was a special space where children could leave messages, drawings, letters, expressions of their deepest fears or their greatest hopes. The wall was covered in small pieces of colored paper, voices that were once silenced but could now be heard. Lucy touched one of the papers. It was written in Ethan's shaky handwriting, "Thank you for listening to me." Those 4 simple words summarized everything. The entire journey, all the pain, all the healing. Life wouldn't be perfect going forward, Lucy knew. There would be difficult days, nightmares that would return, moments when the weight of the past would make itself felt. The trauma doesn't disappear completely. You just learn to carry it. But now they had something they didn't have before. They had each other. They had a family, built not by blood or destiny, but by choice. The choice to see, to listen, to stay. And that choice, Lucy thought as she closed the foundation door and walked toward the car where Richard and Ethan were waiting. That choice was the most powerful one of all. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Lucy, Ethan, and Richard has touched your heart. To continue this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist featuring equally captivating stories. Find it by clicking the link to your left. If you enjoyed this narrative, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button on this video. Every day we bring you unique stories that explore the complexity of life. Don't miss our upcoming content. We look forward to reading your comments.